It always starts small. A pause at her voice. A glance that lingers too long on nothing at all. Maybe she doesn't text back as fast as she used to, or her laughter fades in the middle of a conversation. You tell yourself it's nothing, but somewhere deep inside, something has shifted. Then, almost overnight, it's like she's gone, still there in body, but distant, unreachable. Most men panic at this point. Their minds race with 100 desperate questions. Did I do something wrong? Is she tired of me? Is there someone else? But here's the truth most never face. What's really happening when a woman suddenly pulls away is almost never what you think. This is the part no one talks about. Because, yes, sometimes people grow apart. But more often, her withdrawal is not about you at all. It's about something ancient inside her. A battle beneath the surface that even she can't fully name. Carl Jung believed that the human soul is always moving toward balance. When something inside her feels threatened, her sense of safety, her freedom, her worth, her psyche responds in the only way it knows how, by pulling away, by creating space. And here's the part that will haunt you if you don't understand it. Chasing her now will only push her further into the shadows. But why does she do it? Why do women, just when intimacy is deepest, suddenly disappear behind invisible walls? Jung's answer cuts deeper than any dating advice. Every woman carries within her a library of unconscious memories, childhood wounds, old betrayals, ancestral fears. When love starts to feel too close, too real, these memories wake up. Her withdrawal is not a punishment, but a survival strategy written in the oldest language of the psyche. And the irony? The more you push for answers, the less she can give you. The real story lives in silence. This is where most men destroy their chances. They rush in, demanding explanations. They apologize for things they don't even understand, hoping to win her back with effort. But you can't fix a wound you can't see. Jung warned, when the unconscious is activated, logic becomes useless. Her distance is not an accusation. It's an invitation for both of you to face what's been hidden. What most men never realize is this: her silence is not empty. It's full of messages, if only you know how to listen. Here's a question that changes everything. What if her pulling away is the first step in a transformation? Not just for her, but for you? Most men treat this distance as a threat, but Jung saw it as a gateway. The relationship is being tested, not in the shallow sense of loyalty, but in the deepest sense of self-knowledge. Her withdrawal is the psyche's way of asking, can you handle the unknown? Can you stand in the storm without reaching for control? Because what you do next will determine not just if you keep her, but if you ever truly know her at all. Still, the pain is real. The confusion, the need to know, the ache of being left in the dark. These are all natural. But what if you could see her silence as a mirror, not a rejection? Most men miss the lesson. Your greatest chance for connection is hidden inside this uncertainty. Jung taught that the greatest breakthroughs happen when we stop running from discomfort and start asking what it's trying to teach us. So, instead of demanding answers, what if you listen to the questions her distance is forcing you to ask about yourself? Let's go even deeper. When a woman pulls away, she's not just vanishing. She's unconsciously challenging you to rise, to sit with your own anxiety, to question why you need constant reassurance, to realize how quickly fear of abandonment can turn you into someone you barely recognize. If you can hold steady, if you can honor her space without turning it into a battlefield, you unlock a new level of trust, not just with her, but with yourself. And here's the secret no one shares. Relationships are never just about love. They are battlegrounds for the soul. Every time a woman withdraws, every time you're left in silence, It's the beginning of a new negotiation between who you are and who you're willing to become. Most men fail this test because they're too busy running from the very pain that could set them free. But if you stay, if you refuse to chase or collapse, you invite the possibility of real transformation. So, if you're in that place right now, with her slipping away and your mind spinning, remember, this is not the end. It's the threshold, the start of a journey that most men never dare to walk. The question isn't how to get her back. The question is, are you ready to meet yourself in the darkness her silence reveals? The days after she pulls away are the hardest. Every message she doesn't send, every call she lets ring, every glance that slides past you like you're invisible, it all adds up. The silence isn't just around you. It starts to seep inside. You replay old conversations, hunting for the moment you lost her. You wonder if she's already building a world where you no longer exist. But here's the first trap. The more you obsess, the less you see the real reason she's gone. Most men make the same fatal mistake. They try to fill the space she's left behind. They talk more, text more, buy gifts, make promises. They hope that action will break the spell. But the real spell is psychological, not logical. Jung would say, you're not fighting her choices, you're fighting her unconscious. And the unconscious is a force more ancient than any charm or apology. Chasing her now is like shouting at a locked door, hoping your words will pick the lock. But the lock isn't outside her, it's inside, hidden even from herself. This is where most stories end badly. The man, unable to bear the discomfort, explodes with anger or collapses in neediness. The woman, sensing his desperation, withdraws further. The distance becomes a chasm, and both sides start inventing stories to fill the silence. But here's the secret Jung uncovered. The stories we invent in absence are never about the other person. They're mirrors, showing us what we fear most about ourselves. Her absence reveals not just her doubts, but your own. Ask yourself, what does her withdrawal wake up in you? Is it fear of abandonment? The terror of not being enough? The old wound of being ignored or replaced? Most men run from these feelings, desperate to change the outer world instead of facing the inner one. But this is the fork in the road, where ordinary men shrink and self-aware men grow. If you can face what her distance triggers in you, you gain power over the one thing you can actually change, yourself. Here's where the next trap waits. You may start thinking, if I can just show her how much I care, she'll come back. But love isn't a transaction, and emotional safety can't be bought with effort. Sometimes, her pulling away has nothing to do with your worth or your actions. Jung warned, when a complex is triggered in the psyche, logic and reassurance are powerless. What she needs is space to process what even she can't fully name. What you need is courage, to remain present without clinging, to care without collapsing. This is the moment that separates boys from men and men from themselves. Most men try to fill the silence with noise, explaining, arguing, pleading, or even picking fights just to feel something. But the bravest thing you can do is to let the silence breathe. Jung believed that the unconscious will surface what needs to be healed, but only if we allow it. If you can let go of the need to fix, you become a container for her process, and, more importantly, for your own. But this isn't just about passively waiting. It's about active self-reflection. Take this time to look at your own patterns. Do you need constant validation to feel secure? Do you equate her presence with your value? Do you secretly believe that love must always be proven and earned? Her withdrawal is an opportunity, a painful one, yes, but also a rare opening to see yourself with radical honesty. Most men will never do this work. They'll run to the next distraction, the next relationship, the next excuse. If you choose the harder path, the path Jung called individuation. You begin to discover your own depths. Her silence becomes a guide, not an enemy. Every unanswered message, every missed call, every moment of uncertainty. These are invitations to grow, to separate your self-worth from her approval. You start to see that real love cannot be built on the need to be needed. It must stand on its own, strong enough to survive distance, misunderstanding, and the long, cold winters of doubt. There will be moments when you want to give up, when the urge to chase her is overwhelming, when your friends tell you to move on, or worse, to make her jealous. But deep down, you know none of that will heal the real wound. The real work is invisible. It's the courage to stay with your own discomfort, to let her absence teach you what presence alone cannot. And here's a paradox Jung would appreciate. The more you're willing to let go, the more you make it possible for her to return. Not as someone you can control, but as someone who chooses you freely. The hardest truth? You might never get her back. But if you move through this with honesty and strength, you will get yourself back. And that is the only power that endures, no matter who stays or who leaves. So as the silence stretches on, as the distance becomes real, remember, this isn't just a test of your relationship. It's a test of your soul. Are you willing to stand in the empty space, not as a victim or a beggar, but as a man learning to trust the unknown? Most men never do. But those who can discover that the end of one story is always the beginning of something greater. With every day that she remains distant, the questions only multiply. You start to realize that this isn't just about her anymore. It's about the stories you tell yourself at 3 in the morning, the old scars that throb in the quiet. Why does her silence hurt so much? Why does every minute without her feel like a verdict on your worth? The world says just move on. But if it were that easy, you wouldn't be watching this now, searching for a deeper answer. Here's the truth. Her absence is forcing you to face parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding. This is the pain and the gift of being pulled away from. Jung called it the confrontation with the shadow. The moment you stop blaming the other and start seeing your own reflection in the darkness. Most men never get this far. They cover the ache with anger or numbness, refusing to admit that love has exposed something raw and unfinished inside them. But if you dare to stay with the discomfort, a strange thing begins to happen. Her silence stops being just a loss. It becomes a teacher. It holds up a mirror to your deepest needs and wounds. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly felt seen, even by yourself? How many times have you sacrificed your own boundaries just to keep someone close? How often have you measured your value by someone else's attention? These are not comfortable questions, but they are necessary. Because the longer she stays away, the more the real battle shifts from her choices to your own relationship with vulnerability. Here's a question most men never ask. What if her pulling away is not a punishment, but a pattern? Something that has played out in your life before, with family, with friends, even with yourself. Jung believed that we are haunted by what we do not heal. Until you face the roots of your fear, the fear of being left, of being not enough, of being invisible. You are destined to repeat this pain in every relationship. The woman who withdraws now is not just an individual. She's the embodiment of every wound that went unacknowledged. At this stage, you may feel hopeless. The temptation to distract yourself, to dive into work or fleeting pleasures, is strong. But pause for a moment and notice, has any of that ever truly satisfied you? The truth is, most men live half-lives, always chasing, never arriving. The withdrawal of someone you care about forces you to stop running. It is a forced encounter with the emptiness you've carried for years. And here's where things get real. The longer you try to escape the emptiness, the louder it gets. Jung warned that what we resist not only persists, it grows stronger. If you can't bear to be alone, you will always be at the mercy of someone else's choices. Her silence becomes your prison, but only because you've forgotten that you have the key. The key is acceptance, not resignation, but a clear-eyed willingness to face reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Most men are terrified of this step. They want a shortcut, a way to end the pain without facing themselves. But there are no shortcuts in the inner world. If you stay here, if you breathe through the discomfort, if you resist the urge to blame or to chase, something extraordinary happens. The pain softens. The neediness loosens its grip. You start to see the situation with new eyes, not as a personal failure, but as a crossroads. Let's get brutally honest. Maybe she's gone for good. Maybe she's just lost in her own labyrinth. Either way, you cannot control her journey. What you can control is what you do with the space her absence has created. Will you fill it with resentment, with desperate attempts to win her back? Or will you use it to become the man you were always meant to be? This is the moment where real change is possible. The pain, as Jung would say, is not the enemy. It is the signal that your soul is asking for something more than another round of empty attachment. But here's the catch. Transformation doesn't happen in a straight line. Some days you'll feel strong, other days you'll collapse. The urge to reach out, to beg for closure, to relive every conversation will come and go. Let it. This is the work. Each wave of emotion, each moment of weakness is an opportunity to practice presence, to notice your patterns, to honor your feelings without letting them rule your actions. And this is where the hook lies. Most men will turn back before this point. They'll blame her, blame the world, or bury themselves in distractions. But the few who stay, who walk all the way through the fire, discover a kind of freedom that can't be taken away, no matter who comes or goes. They learn that love, to be real, cannot be about control or possession. It must start with self-awareness, with the courage to face one's own shadow, and with the humility to let others have their journey, even if it means walking alone for a while. So if you're still watching, still feeling, still searching, know this. Her silence is not the end. It's an invitation, a door into the deepest room of your own soul. Most men never enter, but those who do never come out the same. Eventually, something inside you shifts. Maybe it's exhaustion from the endless guessing games, or maybe it's the stark clarity that dawns in solitude. For the first time, you stop trying to solve her absence like a puzzle. Instead, you begin to observe what's left. Yourself, stripped of distraction. The silence that once felt like punishment becomes space. And in that space, strange things begin to grow. It might start with restlessness. Suddenly, you notice the ache you used to numb with her presence. You feel the old patterns, the craving for validation, the fear of being unwanted, rise up raw and insistent. But this time, you don't run. You let the feelings wash over you, letting each wave break without drowning in it. Jung called this process active imagination, the willingness to meet your inner world without flinching, to allow the unknown parts of yourself to take shape and speak. Most men never make it this far. They settle for distraction. But if you're still here, something in you is ready for more. That's when the real alchemy begins. Without the old story of winning her back, your mind is nowhere to go but inward. You start to see your own history. How many times you've chased love. How many times you've become someone else just to keep the connection alive. You remember childhood moments, old heartbreaks, the first time you felt invisible or unworthy. These are not just memories. They're the roots of the pain that her silence has uncovered. Here's where the narrative flips. Instead of seeing her pulling away as a rejection, you start to see it as a revelation. Her absence has forced you to confront the places inside yourself that have never felt whole. Maybe you realize how much you've relied on relationships to fill an emptiness that was there long before she arrived. Maybe you see, for the first time, that no amount of affection from another can compensate for the love you withhold from yourself. And this realization is both devastating and liberating. Because if the wound was never really about her, then the healing is not dependent on her return. For the first time, you glimpse what Jung called individuation, the birth of your own true self, distinct from anyone else's approval or affection. You understand now that every relationship is a mirror, and the pain of being left is, in the end, an invitation to come home to yourself. Of course, it's not a one-way journey. Some days the old habits return. You check your phone, you remember her smile, you wonder if she's thinking of you. That's normal. The psyche doesn't heal in straight lines. The difference is you now have a choice. Will you lose yourself again in longing for what's gone? Or will you use this longing as fuel to build a life that is yours, to pursue meaning and purpose that don't rely on someone else's presence? This is the stage where most men finally understand the paradox of love. You cannot hold on to anyone without first learning to hold yourself. You cannot demand loyalty or passion from another if you are unfaithful to your own needs and truths. Her withdrawal, which once felt like the end, becomes a doorway. You step through, and on the other side is a new kind of freedom. Not the freedom from pain, but the freedom to choose how you respond to it. And now, when you look back at the relationship, you see it differently. You see the ways you lost yourself, the moments you ignored your own boundaries just to keep peace, the times you were silent when you should have spoken. You also see the good, the real connection, the growth, the moments of genuine intimacy. You realize that her pulling away was never just about her or you. It was about the dance between two people, each carrying their own shadows, each hoping the other could make them whole. In this clarity, forgiveness becomes possible, not just for her, but for yourself. You understand that you did the best you could with what you knew, that your longing, your pain, your mistakes, they're all part of the journey toward a more authentic self. And when the urge to chase or to numb returns, you greet it with gentleness. You know now that real strength is not in never hurting, but in staying open, even when it hurts. Here's the final hook. Most people spend their whole lives running from this kind of pain. They jump from relationship to relationship, always searching, never landing. But you have a choice to use this experience, this loss, this silence, as the catalyst for something deeper, to let it transform you from the inside out. Because once you learn to hold yourself, to love yourself in the absence of anyone else's approval, you become unshakable. And when you meet someone new, or even if she returns, you show up not as a beggar for love, but as someone who is already whole. So the next time you find yourself lost in the silence after someone pulls away, remember, this is not emptiness. This is the birthplace of your real self. And most men will never make it here, but you can. When you finally step out of the fog, it feels like waking up in a world both familiar and entirely new. The pain of her absence is still there, but it no longer controls you. Become a part of your story, one that no longer needs to be rewritten or denied. You see yourself, perhaps for the first time, not as someone who was left behind, but as someone who survived, learned, and grew. And you realize that what matters most is not whether she returns, but who you've become in the silence. This is the gift hidden in heartbreak. The emergence of a man who is no longer defined by anyone else's presence or absence. The man who no longer seeks validation through chasing, apologizing, or shrinking himself for love. The man who can stand alone without flinching, not because he is hardened, but because he is finally whole. Jung wrote that the journey to individuation is the journey to the true self, a path filled with loss, longing, and the fire of transformation. Now you see that her withdrawal was the catalyst, not the curse. Now everything shifts. The next time you meet someone, you don't rush in to fill the silence or to prove your worth. You listen, you observe, you respect both their boundaries and your own. You understand that love is not about possession, but about presence. It's about holding space for two people to be fully themselves, even if that means risking distance, silence, or the unknown. You can give without losing. You can receive without clinging. You can let go without falling apart. If she ever returns, you welcome her not as a lost piece of your identity, but as a fellow traveler. The old urge to chase or control has faded. You understand that true connection can only exist between two whole people, not two halves trying to mend each other's wounds. If she doesn't return, you carry no bitterness. Her absence taught you how to stay with yourself. The story is no longer about getting her back. It's about never abandoning yourself again. But this isn't just about love. The lessons echo through every corner of your life. You approach work, friendships, even solitude differently. No more hustling for approval. No more molding yourself to fit into spaces where your soul doesn't belong. You become discerning, willing to wait for what feels right, unwilling to tolerate what isn't. People sense the change, even if they can't name it. There is a new weight to your presence, a quiet strength born from having faced your own darkness and returned. There will be days when the old ache resurfaces, a song, a memory, an empty bed. But now, you meet it with compassion. You know it's a part of you, not a flaw. You let it come, and you let it go. You no longer need to run or to numb. The emptiness is no longer terrifying. It is the source of your freedom. You have made peace with not knowing, with not controlling, with not being chosen every time. And in that peace, you find something better than certainty. You find resilience. And here's the truth few will ever tell you. The very thing you feared most, her silence, her distance, the feeling of being unwanted, became the doorway to your own soul. Most men spend their lives trying to avoid this pain, never realizing it holds the key to their strength. The man who survives heartbreak without losing himself emerges with a power that can't be taken away. He becomes dangerous, not because he is cruel or indifferent, but because he is finally free. You see now that every relationship, every loss, every silence was a chapter in your becoming. The goal was never to win her back or to be needed. The goal was to become someone who could love fully, without fear, without apology, without losing himself. And when you walk into the world with that kind of self-possession, the world notices. Some are drawn closer, some fall away, but you remain steady, rooted in a self that no one can give you and no one can take away. So, what really happens when a woman suddenly pulls away? The old story says you lose. The deeper truth is you are given a chance to meet yourself, sometimes for the very first time. It's not an easy journey. Most men will never finish it. But if you stay, if you hold the silence, if you let the pain shape you instead of break you, you'll emerge with a wisdom that outlasts any fleeting comfort. You'll see that love is never about holding on. It's about learning how to let go, and in that letting go, discovering who you were always meant to be. And that, in the end, is how you win, even if you never get her back. Because you finally got yourself.